Hey everyone! Today, Rita and I are answering our first listener question. This was such a great question and so relatable for most people first learning Ayurveda that we decided it was best to answer it as a full length episode. Okay, here's the question. Ayurveda has intrigued me for a while now, but my perception as an outsider has been it's all or nothing. As someone who is under considerable life demands, as a husband and working parent with young children, is there any low-hanging fruit that would be an impactful step towards a more Ayurvedic lifestyle? Not life hacks, more the 80-20 perspective of integrating Ayurveda. This is such a beautiful question because it really highlights why most people are hesitant to explore Ayurveda, thinking they'll have to dedicate hours upon hours to caring for themselves or give up foods that they really love or overhaul their lifestyle. Our culture really has ingrained in us to follow certain diets or trends in order to, quote, be healthy. Ayurveda is not that at all. It is not a diet, it's not a wellness trend. Ayurveda is an ancient medical system that connects us to our awareness of how we are living and moving and breathing through this life. I hope this conversation begins to clarify some of those misunderstandings and provide a new perspective where Ayurveda is something worth exploring. We also love answering listener questions, so if you have a question for Rita and I, subscribe to our Patreon page for $5 a month and we will answer your questions on the podcast. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this conversation.
Welcome to the Ayurveda for Women's Health podcast, where we simplify ancient Ayurvedic wisdom into practical guidance for everyday life. Between the overwhelming wellness trends, quick fixes, and conflicting health advice out there, we return to a science that has been around for thousands of years. I'm Rita, an Ayurvedic health counselor.
And I'm Brittni, an Ayurveda practitioner. In a world that disconnects us from our bodies, we are here to guide you back. Through body literacy, practical tools, and time-tested science, we will help you step boldly into a more empowered, aligned version of yourself. So let's dive in. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Views expressed do not represent our employers. Well, I was going to share with you, Rita, some things that I noticed this week with utilizing Ayurveda, and I was on the verge of getting sick. Last week was, as you know, was very stressful for a number of reasons. Unexpected life things popped up that brought a bit of chaos into our life. And so there's a lot of extra going on, and it was pretty stressful to kind of have going on along with other life, as most people can probably relate to. And what I noticed is that by the end of the week, I started getting a sore throat. I was starting to feel sick and just like run down and tired. And I was like, I'm not getting sick. Like, I know what I can do to swing this back in the other direction. And so I integrated some herbs. I had my turmeric and honey, right? Really helped the sore throat. I switched to just eating kanji that day. So I had rice water and really gave my digestion a break. And then that night, I did an abhyanga, and John actually did it for me, which was really special. He hasn't done before.
Nice.
So that was really nice, and took a warm shower afterwards and felt very relaxing. And that was before bed. And that night, so using my watch, I track my sleep. In the morning, my heart rate variability improved, my resting heart rate went down. So to me, it just always confirms every time I practice abhyanga, all of these systems in my body regulate and improve. And it's neat to see like the hard data of my watch is like tracking what my heart's doing. And I felt better too, right? Like I felt like, oh, okay, I can, manage this stress now, and this like stress isn't managing me. It's
Mm.
kind of that feeling too. But really need to see the data. Like my heart rate variability had went back to balance, right? It had started to like dip a few days before as we were feeling really stressed, and then that helped bring it back up to normal. And then my resting heart rate dropped down a couple beats too. So down to like 53 from 55. And it had been trending up as I was like getting more stressed. And now it's back down to kind of more of my like baseline. It's fascinating to me to see what actually happens in the body when we can utilize these practices. And it's not just a, you know, you are doing it when life is perfect. It's kind of like integrating it as you go, and as life is imperfect is part of that preventative wellness that Ayurveda really offers. So it really helps. And so I did Abhyanga for 2 nights, and by the third day I felt back to like normal energy, and I never developed into an actual like sickness or a cold. I think the kanji really helps too. Just like totally gave my digestion a break and was like, I'm just going really simple. So yeah, it was neat to experience it. And I will say every time I've gone to receive Abhyanga from a practitioner, my heart rate goes down, my HRV goes back up. Like it really helps reset everything. It's just so fascinating to actually see it and feel it at the same time.
Mm. Well, I'm really glad that you were able to catch it. And I feel like, yeah, I think for me, anytime I get sick, I can always trace it back to life got crazy, life got stressful. Obviously, when those things happen, some of the self care practices go to the wayside because sometimes there's just not enough time, there's not enough energy, right? And so, yeah, I love when you have the space and you can catch it and can be like, okay, I can take this day. I'm going to cook this simple recipe. I'm going to eat it all day. And kanji is powerful stuff. It's something I don't make often, but that's exactly how I use it, as you described. It's like, oh, some sickness is coming on. And it's a recipe I share very often, both in the digestive reset containers that I've done. And I have this little ebook of recipes I share often with clients. And I always write in it, like, save this for when you're getting sick, because this is the recipe that is going to help turn it around sooner. It's just so simple for the body to digest. And I feel like it helps the body to just do its thing. Like the body knows how to heal itself. We just have to create the
Yeah.
environment and the space to let it happen. And that doesn't, we can't always get the tools in time, and sometimes it's not enough and all the things, but I'm glad it was for you. And super cool to be able to have that data to correlate that. I don't use any kind of tracking devices right now. I've thought about it, and I go back and forth on it because I do think it's helpful to get that feedback. And I think it can just be so validating to really have that buy-in of like, okay, this practice really is my go-to when stress is high, because I can not only feel it, but I can see those numbers. Sometimes we need
Yeah.
the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's nice. And I never like to like rely on the numbers as the place I begin, but it's kind of the second place I look, right? Like first, oh, how's much does my body actually feel? And then, what are the numbers saying? And it can help bridge some of the gaps between the two. But yeah, I found it helpful. And yeah, kanji has saved me many times, and I have had clients that I had been working with, and then one specifically, I hadn't worked with her for a while, and she emailed me out of the blue and was like, I was getting sick and I had the kanji recipe and it like totally brought me back to life. Like, thank you so much. So yeah, it's a great one to like keep in your back pocket.
Yeah. Let's one of us remember to put that on the list to do a wellness library video for that, because that would be a really good one to add in there. Yeah, it's a good recipe to spread around.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, we have a fun topic today. Rita, do you want to give us an overview of what we're going to be sharing today?
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about some really easy ways to begin integrating Ayurveda, because You and I very easily can zoom in on topics and get into the weeds and get into the details. And a lot of these episodes have been talking about certain subsystems of the body or certain parts of our health. And so today we're going to zoom out and we're going to give more of an overview for people who are perhaps new to Ayurveda, or create an episode that people could send to family members, friends, clients who are maybe just kind of dipping their toes in. But essentially, that beginning conversation was a good intro because so much about Ayurveda is really about preventative medicine. And it's a very individualized system, as we know. And so much of what's recommended when you work with an Ayurvedic practitioner, it's very individualized. But today we're going to zoom out and talk about these main practices that are really supportive for all and really just help keep the general rhythms going smoothly in the body. We have our digestive rhythm, we have our hormonal rhythms, we have our what you think of today as our circadian rhythm, like our sleep wake schedules and our energy fluctuating throughout the day. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about with these today is, yeah, we're keeping that rhythm going because that's keeping things moving and making sure we don't have stagnation in those channels. So we're really trying to help keep that regularity in the body. And I think going back to what you first talked about in terms of when life gets stressful, like it's the body's just that much more equipped to handle those life stressors and handle those sicknesses that are coming on when we create that general rhythm. So, yeah, Ayurveda at its core, like we said, it's all about preventative medicine. It's all about maintaining our health, maintaining our longevity, and creating some like building up our tissues and building up our reserves so that when life happens, our body can handle it a little bit
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. And Ayurveda, I think it can be easy to view it as, oh, it's a system or it's a diet or it's this, I have to be a certain way in order to integrate it. And really I've found in learning it myself and studying it is that it's kind of none of those things. It really is being in that relationship with yourself and with nature and with your environment and really being present in all of those places and what that connection is like for you and those core foundations of who you are and how you relate to life and how you move through life. It's helpful to think about Ayurveda in terms of understanding its philosophy and its concepts instead of this set of rules that you need to follow, right? Like there's a lot of diets out there that's like, well, eat this and don't eat this. And like, it's like regimented. And that's not Ayurveda at all. Ayurveda is really considering all of these other aspects of our life that we're engaging with. So it's how are we engaging and, yeah, to not go too far down the rabbit hole, Ayurveda is a way to understand our relationship with ourselves, the internal and the external environment.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to summarize that. Yeah.
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 Cool.
Well, and if somebody is super new who's listening, maybe they want to pause and start with our very first episode because we do give a little bit more of the history of Ayurveda, and we're not going to dive into that today. So if you're looking for that, maybe peek over there in our very first episode. But yeah, as we mentioned, today we're going to give some easy tips for how to begin integrating. So I think to dive in and talk about one that I think is general, but we can get a little bit specific. I think Ayurveda is really all about having a mindful relationship with food. And so I think to the point you were describing earlier, it's a philosophy, it's not a set of rules. I think sometimes we can think that eating Ayurvedically means that we're eating khichdi and soup and like certain types of spices and certain types of foods. And then when we're not eating those types of food, we're not eating Ayurvedically. And that's not true. And eating Ayurvedically to me means that you're eating mindfully. You are having a relationship with your food while you're cooking your food, while you're eating your food, and also paying attention to how that food feels afterwards. So I think to try to get practical with that, we want to eat in a way where we're chewing well and eat in a way where we're paying attention to the sensory aspects of the food, how it tastes, how it smells. And essentially the opposite, I think, how most of us eat in this current culture, in this current climate, which is really fast and while we're multitasking and doing 100 different things. So I think when people ask like these really, what are like the low lifts or what are like the top couple of things I can do, I always start with just, well, let's slow down with eating. Let's chew food really well. Let's have that relationship with our food when we're eating, even if it's, if all you can take is a 20-minute meal once a day to start. I think just having that time to set aside and to focus on the meal is can really go a long way. And I think the other part of that is eating to your hunger levels and eating to what feels good in your body. And so often in our current culture, we're really focused on, oh, I need to get this many grams of protein in, or this many grams of fiber in, or this, so on. And I think, there can be some merit to those things, but I think one of the most powerful ways you can quote unquote eat Ayurvedically is to eat to your hunger. And if your hunger dips down low, well, that's not a time to try to shove in all the protein and the fiber. It's like we really want to tune into what is my hunger level right now. And that's oftentimes equivalent with what we're able to digest.
Yeah, I think you summed that up really well. I loved how you described it in really getting to know your hunger and like understanding the personality of your hunger, right? And
Mm.
is it like really intense? Is it slow? Is it, what kind of qualities does it have? And being able to balance that with connecting with the food specifically. So, really getting to know what it feels like for you is very different than, like you're saying, kind of counting those numbers of whatever goal you're trying to hit. That's a very blanket statement of supporting your health. Whereas if you're thinking about it in terms of how does this food feel? Am I connecting with the food? Am I integrating this? Am I slowing down? Am I being aware of what I'm eating? Like sometimes when I'm eating so fast, I'm like, what did I even just eat? Like, did I enjoy that flavor? Like, what did it taste like? What did it smell like? And I think that slowing down is part of, like you're describing, connecting with the food and what's in front of you, but also part of that is connecting with the energy of that food, right? And what is that energy bringing to your body? And it's just so opposite of how we're kind of taught, right? We're not really taught to slow down. If you haven't thought about this before, it can feel foreign. Like, wait, I wouldn't multitask. I can't read my book or like walk around while I'm eating or eat while I'm driving. And just thinking about how it feels when you do that and how it feels if you try it a different way. And part of that observation of how does your body feel and what's it saying when you're connecting with it in that way.
Yeah, that's something I'm often saying to clients is, well, your body knows what's best for you more than I do, more than anyone does. These are the guidelines. Let's try these on. Let's see how they feel. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think just really quick to add to that, I think everything we just talked about is so foundational for Ayurveda, and it's not easy. Like, it is not easy to pay attention and tune in. And so often we're like, well, this is what I cooked for dinner and now it's time for dinner. And now I'm not hungry, but it's like what I've already cooked. So I do feel like I just want to honor that it's not always easy to have a mindful relationship with food, and it's a practice.
Yeah. 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 And if this has brought up some curiosity for you, two of our first episodes were on digestion specifically and how the digestive system works. And so we're not going into those details today, but there is a reason why mindful eating is really helpful, and that those episodes go into a lot more detail about that.
Yeah, if you want the science, we go deep there. Well, a second one that I think is a good one to share, where again, we're trying to support these digestive rhythms, like eating to your hunger, it's supporting your rhythm. Because if your rhythm starts to ebb and, you're overeating, then we can bog it down. If your rhythm starts to flow and get high and you're undereating, that can also cause some imbalance. So we're trying to align with your inner digestive rhythm by eating to hunger. Another thing that we can do that really supports our digestive rhythm is having lunch be the largest meal of the day. So this is a hard one. I mentioned the first one's a hard one. This one took me years. So I'm just going to preface it by saying that. But what we know through Ayurvedic science, and I think has also, you could say, been supported in some modern science. I think there's people will debate that. But I will say what I feel in my body and what I have had so many clients validate that they've also felt in their body is that when we eat our largest meal in the middle of the day and then have a lighter supper, it really helps strengthen digestion. And our hunger levels are often highest in the middle of the day. Really, our ability to digest and break down our food is what's highest in the middle of the day. But so many of us end up putting together kind of a few different snacks for lunch, and then, we have our full dinner. But that is, I would say, kind of, I think of it as you're going against the rhythm that's already happening in your body. And that's not to say like you might be someone with really high hunger and you might need a good sized lunch and you might need a good sized dinner. But I think for most people, we really want to get into this rhythm of having lunch be your biggest meal to really support your energy endeavors throughout the day versus if we eat this big meal in the evening, it's like we've already expended all that energy and our energy starts to dip down. And then again, we're like bogging ourselves down on that end, and that can disrupt sleep and so on.
Yeah, it's a good one to get curious about. Just thinking about our culture, I think there's just such a standard in, okay, everyone gathers for dinner, or like you're home for dinner, and like that's when you can eat. And start to explore other cultures and other ways that people move through life, and like why, like the reason behind it, right? And in other cultures, you might take a siesta in the afternoon and you don't work in those hours, but very much in, the North American culture and in America here, it is that 9 to 5 job, that work culture, that corporate culture, where then you're eating dinner at 6:30 p.m. and it's like the biggest meal you've had all day. And then it's just kind of sitting there, right? It's not really digesting. And then you're trying to go to sleep and it impacts how we sleep because there's a conflict of, well, do I prioritize digestion or do I prioritize sleep? And the body doesn't know, like it has to kind of choose one, or it's not doing either one well. So, I think it is a way to like get curious, like, why am I eating my largest meal at dinner? How does this feel for my body? How am I sleeping? How am I digesting? And I think when we start to like question the things that are just routine for us, I think it can unlock another perspective that we may not have even been aware was possible. I think we just get so used to the habits and the way that we've been shaped through our culture of like, well, this is how we've always done it, so we're going to keep doing it. And like, well, how's it working for you? I think this is one way that we can get curious about these routines that we have for ourselves, and that being a really big one. To your point, I've seen a lot of clients make that one change and are like, wow, I sleep so much better and I feel so much better and my energy is lighter and more consistent. And I just see all of these other functions in the body start to feel better, to like really blossom because this area, like just switching the time that you're eating your largest meal. Sounds really simple,
Mm.
but I think you'll find in Ayurveda that the simple things have the most profound impact on our health and how we actually feel in our body.
Yeah, so often I am reminded of, I think, when the dis-ease gets more complex, it's often a reminder of how important these basic foundational pieces are and how far they can go. I was going to add too on that piece. For me, I'm someone like food is joy, food is love. I love to go out to eat. I love to eat sweets. And I will also add, if I do that midday, like if we go out for lunch as compared to going out for dinner, it's that's not to say I don't, of course, go out for dinner sometimes too, or eat later occasionally and that kind of thing. But my body can digest it so much easier when it's in the middle of the day versus the evening on all accounts. So again, I think it's something, yeah, be curious about it. Try it on and notice it if you can do it a couple days, like see how that feels. And I, again, completely hear how challenging it can be to change that habit, but that internal motivation will happen. People will just feel so much better. They'll want to keep going with it.
Yeah. One tip I share with clients that I've a lot of them have found helpful is that you can still make your dinner, right? Because a lot of that time is this is when everyone's home. This is when I spend time with my family or my partner, or whoever it is. And I get that, right? And you don't want to take that away from somebody because that's important too. Just as important as how we're connecting with food is it connecting with our loved ones. And so you can still have that cooking time together and that time in the kitchen if that's what brings you joy. It can also be helpful to like plate your lunch for the next day first and like make that portion size that you're really looking for and then plate your dinner with what's left. And that can help you start to portion out those sizes and get used to, okay, I'm going to have this for my lunch for the next day. And this is the size that makes sense. And I found that helpful for a lot of clients and it sounds really simple, but again, it really makes a big difference and something that you can start doing today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to get practical. I will say I sometimes go the other way too. Like today, for example, is a work from home day. So we made a bunch of chicken in the Instant Pot and some rice. I have 2 Instant Pots. It's like, it's a whole thing. I'm like Instant Pot's biggest fan. But when I just will say I only have 2 because I had one and my partner had one, but I love Instant Pots. But anyway, we had dueling Instant Pots going and we cooked a bunch of veggies up and yeah, like had a big grain bowl kind of lunch. And then we'll use some of that chicken for just like a lighter dinner and do a couple of tacos with some corn tortillas and some avocado. And yeah, not as much of the grains and the carbs and the kind of heavier foods.
Yeah. Well, now I know to come over to your house for lunch. It sounds delicious.
I do love making a good lunch. Yeah. Well, another one that can be, again, like a big cultural shift, but can go a long way is thinking about supporting our digestive rhythms is trying to really avoid iced beverages, especially when we're eating. So in Ayurvedic medicine, we think about our digestion as a fire. The term for digestive strength is Agni, and that translates as digestive fire. So we're often using this metaphor as like there's this fire right at the base of your stomach that's helping to cook and break down and process your food. And if we bring in ice cold beverages, it can put out that fire. It can disrupt our ability for our stomach acid, our enzymes to break down our food. So in Ayurveda, we tend to recommend either warm or room temperature liquids. I think that can depend a lot on like the time of year and the constitution. If you are somewhere super hot or you just running hot, then I'm not saying you need to bring in hot water, but what can be really supportive for many constitutions and many times of the year is sipping on warm water, herbal teas throughout the day, and especially with meals, that can make a big difference.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I like to think about it also from the perspective of energy, right, and temperature regulation. And so if your body is taking in something like really, really cold or really, really hot, it's trying to like get it to body temperature. So it's using energy to regulate that temperature back to something that's absorbable by the body, which is body temperature. And so if you're having something that's ice, the body's going to work harder at getting it to be usable by the body and not actually digesting that food that's now in the stomach like you're talking about. And it's so common to see, right? Ice drinks everywhere you go out. I also see a lot of people kind of get into the habit of having iced drinks in the cold season too, and that can be really challenging on digestion. So it's really interesting to think about it even just from that energy perspective. Like your body is using energy to bring it to homeostasis, and like temperature is such a fascinating thing within the body. Like that system itself, it's regulating on such a subtle level, and so tuning into the temperature of what we're putting into the body can be really helpful in helping to maintain its natural rhythms, like you're saying. And I'll give an example because I think it was very profound. I had a client that had emailed me, and it was hot. It was the middle of summer, and they had gone out for a run. And after coming back from the run, our body is like, let's cool down, let's chug iced water. And she said she tried it differently, and she came back. She was really hot. She lives down south, so it was like really hot down there and humid. She came in and had room temperature tap water. And it wasn't iced, it wasn't cold, it was just room temperature, and she said she cooled down a lot faster than she usually does when she's having iced. And I think to me, that really speaks volumes in terms of like the body was trying to already self-regulate itself. And then you're adding in this other extreme of cold. It's like swinging that pendulum from like really hot to really cold. But now it's kind of putting the system into a swing instead of a homeostasis. So it was fascinating to hear from them share that example. Like they were so blown away with how well it worked just by drinking room temperature water after a hot run.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just add like kind of some middle ground because I also can appreciate that there are a lot of people who love their iced liquids. That again, I think you could start by just separating them from meals. I think that's a good place to start. And I'll also just say we're going into summer. I do think that there are plenty of situations where we are going to want to drink cool liquids. And I think that's really appropriate. We're talking about iced. We're talking about these like frozen cold liquids all the time. And again, just something to pause and reflect on and experiment with and see what happens in the body. Yeah.
There really is a big difference between cold and cool. And I think that you can begin to play with those temperatures and how you feel. Because I agree, like as a Pitta constitution, sometimes I need a little bit of coolness, but I'm not extinguishing the fire, right? It's like just subtle enough. But yeah, it's subtle, but with a big impact. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sticking with the theme around digestion here, another really simple way to integrate Ayurveda is cooking with spices and cooking with herbs that are supportive for our digestion. I mentioned that digestion we think of it as like this fire in the body, and you can think of the herbs and the spices as kindling, and they're getting the fire going. So, big ones that we're often recommending are cumin, coriander, and fennel. And we have in the wellness library a couple of different recipes for using those as teas and using those as what we call a churna or a cooking spice. But those are great, simple things that you can bring in. And I like to make up a batch. I make up a batch probably like every I'd say like 2 to 3 weeks, I'll make up a batch because sometimes time is tight. And, sometimes I'll like grind up some fresh herbs before a meal, and I love that, and it's delicious and fun, but I can't honestly say I'm doing that every day. But I think having that spice blend that you can then sprinkle onto your roasted veggies, whatever you're sautéing in your soups, in your stews, a little bit on the eggs, like whatever it may be, it can just help the body break that down that much easier, adding that little bit of spice. And it's tasty too.
Yeah, and I love using spices. I think they're such a great way to support digestion. And it really the power of the plants is that they are enhancing what's already the body's already making, right? Those digestive enzymes. So it's not adding something to it. It's calling out and kind of igniting those enzymes that are already there and saying like, hey, come on out, like it's time for food. So it kind of wakes things up in the body, which I really love. And they're easy to add. Like anytime I'm making, even if you're having an iced coffee or whatever, like add in some cardamom or add in some a little bit of spice that's going to support digestion along with it, right? It's creating that balance. So it's not an all or nothing mindset with Ayurveda. It's like, how can we create that balance? And, so once I started cooking with digestive spices, I feel like they're easy to integrate into everything, right? I add them into cookies. I add them into my granola, like use them in abundance because they are so supportive of the natural system that your body is doing, and it just enhances the process.
Yeah. Yeah, cardamom's my favorite spice. I use it as often as I can. Yeah, and then maybe just to throw out, cinnamon can also be a support for digestion, or ginger, or um, what else am I missing? Turmeric can be a nice one to bring in. It's kind of interesting to reflect on American culture. I will say for me, like I grew up using garlic powder and onion powder and salt, and that was it. And it's so interesting to reflect on that. And maybe the symbolism of that, because those are just such, I mean, I'm not saying they're bad. Like, there's always going to be a use and an indication for all spices, but they're kind of intense. They're a little aggravating. They're heating in the body. They're what we call rajasic, these garlic powder and onion powder. Like, it can be a little aggravating for the constitution. So yeah, I think diversifying and bringing in just some other spices and herbs that can bring in some positive benefit.
Yeah, those the onion and the garlic, to your point, I remember that too. But they stir up the mind, right? Like they move the mind energy in that rajasic energy. They get things going, and it's kind of hard to bring it down. So yeah, it's very reflective of the pace of our culture today, and that, slowing down is challenging. So what's nice about those staple spices, the cumin, coriander, and fennel, is that combining them together, they're balancing for all doshas, right? So they're really subtle, they're soothing, and they're going to support whatever constitution you are, because they blend. That blend is very balancing. So, and it's great as a tea. It's great as a spice. Like, I have it very often, in like daily. I'm having it in some form. So yeah, it's a great place to start.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, the last one that we had on our list here to share is less about the digestive rhythms and more about, you could say, your sleep wake rhythms. So, what we think about currently in modern science is our circadian rhythm, this rise in our energy that happens in the morning with the sun, our cortisol that gets released, and then this kind of lowering of energy that happens in the evening that supports sleep, the melatonin that comes in to support sleep. And what Ayurveda recommends is a practice called dinacharya, which essentially translates as daily routine. And I like to call this the bookends. So you're having some kind of morning routine to, it may be to help wake up the body. If for some people, it may be more to help ground if you're someone who wakes up and you have really scattered energy, but some kind of morning routine to help ease the body into the day and give the body the energetics of what it needs for the day. And then on the other end, we have this kind of winding down routine that can help prepare the body for sleep. I like to say that I think everybody has a routine. It's just not always that it's a routine that's serving us. Like, your routine might be that you wake up and scroll on your phone or jump right into your email first thing, whereas Ayurveda is going to recommend that on both ends and both of the bookends that we create some space, and that could be space for some kind of self-care practice. It could be meditation, it could be yoga, it could be breathing, it could be an oil massage on yourself, it could be journaling. I actually really like, when I'm working with clients, I'll kind of create a little menu where they can choose like morning routine menu and then evening routine menu, so that you kind of can flow with what you're feeling, but something that you're doing that's really helping the body again either ease into the day or wind down into the day. Because if we just wake up and we jump right into social media, we jump right into our work day, or if we're doing those kinds of things right before bed, it just absolutely disrupts those rhythms. And it's, again, that subtle practice that has such an impact.
Yeah, I think I like to think of it as a way of connecting your body with your mind too. And it's kind of this transition period of the day, this transition time of day where we're going from, like, deep restful sleep, and we're starting to wake up. If we just start like jolting our nervous system with our emails and the news, and like, someone I heard describe once that when we open our phone in bed, we're inviting all of those people into our bed. If we're like, whatever those communications are. So just like, it is this way of really intentionally setting those boundaries for the day and having agency with your body, right? Like, how am I caring for myself today? What's on my mind right now? How does my mind feel? If you're waking up and simply placing your hands on your belly, right, and bringing your attention to yourself rather than starting your day with external energy, you're connecting with your internal energy first. And that can set a very different tone for your day. And same with at night too, right? Because we're thinking about this other transition time where we're preparing for restful sleep. And so if we're like checking the news or checking our social media, or we're like going to bed with all of these thoughts in our mind of all of these, interactions, it's going to have a very different quality to our sleep than if we are, connecting with ourselves and bringing some intention to, okay, what am I stepping into next? Well, I'm stepping into sleep that's going to be supportive and restful. I'm waking up into a day that's going to be supportive. And I think it brings that connection between the body and mind that can be very easily overlooked in a lot of routines, like you're saying, those routines we have that may just not be serving us.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. I think one thing I just want to add to that is going back to this menu idea. I'm big on my menus. I really think it's important that these we set up these routines for ourselves, but we have these really simple, quick options for when we either don't have the time or don't have the energy. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm just exhausted. I don't feel like doing anything before bed. But I can do 5 diaphragmatic breaths, right? I can do something like really small and really simple that's still setting that intention for closing off the day, for going into restful sleep versus if I'm falling asleep while I'm, on my phone or whatever it may be. It's just like it's subtle, but it's really impactful on the body. So I really like having these shorter options for when life happens, as well as longer options for like kind of what you were talking about in the very beginning. Like, oh, I'm feeling really run down. I'm feeling really stressed. I need to create this 40-minute wellness routine for myself before I go to bed. I'm going to do this Abhyanga. I'm going to put oil in my ears and massage my jaw. And like, there's so many different options. And Ayurveda is abundant and endless in terms of care options, but figuring out what works for you and having the different options. So it's not like, oh, I don't have time to do this, but it's like, okay, I have time to do this little one, and that's great for today.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such an important piece in learning how to integrate this system, is that you don't need this whole list of like things you need to check off, right? I think everything we shared today, someone could easily start integrating today, right? Being mindful with how you're eating, w- adjusting the size of your meal at different times of day, having beverages that are supporting the temperature of your body, right? They're supporting digestion, cooking with spices, and having a way to connect your body and your mind together at these transition times of the day with that morning and waking. It's like, what can I do today? Like, what's one thing that would be really simple of all these things we just shared that you feel drawn to trying, and start with that and see where it goes. So yeah, I think it's part of why I love Ayurveda. It's not a set of rules, right? It's concepts and understanding nature, and understanding ourselves as nature unlocks a lot of how we can share in a mutual relationship with nature.
Yeah, and I think how Ayurveda also helps remind us of how integrated all of these different systems of our body are, as well as how integrated our internal environment is with our external environment, and just this like relationship between it all, and just the power of these really subtle practices and how much of a difference they can make even in cases where there is more extensive disease going on. I'm not saying this is going to, cure everything by any means. But it's a place to start. I think these are really good foundational places to start that hopefully can be motivating for people to try these on, experiment, maybe start with one. Don't go all in. Start with one, maybe two, and yeah, be curious, see how they feel, and let us know. Join our Patreon, and we love hearing from people there, and it's always helpful. I think whether it's clients or people giving feedback from the podcast, it's always nice to hear stories and hear what works, what doesn't, kind of what you're trying, what you maybe put your own spin on. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love hearing things that people try differently, and it always just provides perspective of there's always a different way to try something. We don't have to be locked in forever. Nothing's permanent. So, yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, Rita. I think this is helpful. I'm excited to share this. And yeah, these also over time have become a part of my, like, now the things that feel really natural that I turn to without having to think about them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. It's all about making things habit, and then it becomes a much
yeah,
lower lift of energy over time, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean the world to us and help support our work if you'd like, share, leave a review, as well as subscribe to our podcast on whichever platform you use. If you're looking for more connection or would like to support this podcast, we'd love to have you join our Patreon for $5 a month. Here you'll get bonus episodes and access to our community chat Q&A.
And don't forget to check out our wellness library, which is filled with self-guided classes, kitchen tutorials, herbal recipes, and more Ayurvedic practices, all for just $5 a month. Thanks so much for being here with us. Until next time, be well.